Part 2. The river needs another soul. Some spirits return for revenge. Others return for balance. But the most terrifying spirits never truly leave. After the night the river took its justice, the town believed the nightmare had ended. They were wrong. Because the river was never satisfied with just one soul. Welcome back to DreadLoop. Every nightmare returns. The river needs another soul. Months passed after the deaths of the 5 men. The town of San Celestino slowly returned to its quiet routine. The markets reopened. The fishermen returned to the docks. Children once again walked along the riverside road, and people stopped talking about Maravillan Wevel. At least, in public. But something in the town had changed. No one could explain it. The river seemed darker than before. Not visibly, but the air around it felt heavier, as if the water carried a memory that refused to fade. The dreams begin. It started with dreams. At first, only a few people experienced them, then dozens, then nearly half the town. Every dream was the same, standing on the riverbank, looking into the black water, and hearing a faint whisper carried through the wind. Not enough. People woke suddenly at the exact same time. 2:03 a.m., always the same hour. Always the same feeling of cold water around their ankles, even when their beds were dry. To the new girl. A new family moved into San Celestino that summer. Their daughter's name was Aria. 16 years old, Keaton Ups. She spent most afternoons walking near the river bridge, sketching landscapes in a small notebook. No one knew why she felt drawn to the water. But the first night she arrived in town, she had the dream. The river. The whisper. Not enough. When Aria woke, she noticed something strange. Her feet were damp, and there were faint, muddy footprints on her bedroom floor, leading toward the window. 3. The return of the whisper. Aria tried to ignore it, but the dreams continued. Every night the whisper grew clearer. At first it sounded distant, like wind through trees. Then it sounded like someone speaking directly behind her. "You can hear me." One night she woke suddenly at 2:03. Her window was open, and from somewhere far away, she heard the sound of water dripping. Slow, steady, patient. For the town, strange things began happening again. Streetlights near the river flickered constantly. Dogs refused to walk near the old bridge. Fishermen said their nets sometimes came back filled with nothing but black river mud. And one morning, someone found wet footprints leading from the riverbank into the middle of town. Bare footprints. Small, like a teenage girl's. But the trail ended suddenly in the street, as if the person had simply disappeared. 5. The first warning. Aria met an old fisherman named Matt. He had lived in San Celestino longer than anyone else. When he saw her sketching the river, his expression darkened. "You shouldn't stay here after sunset," he told her. "Why?" she asked. Mateo looked at the water. "Because the river doesn't forget." Aria hesitated before answering. "It talks to me sometimes." Mateo froze. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he whispered, "That means it has chosen you." 6. The truth about the spirit. Mateo told her the old legend. Long before the town existed, the river was believed to be home to a wandering spirit. A spirit that punished those who brought violence to the land. But the spirit could not move freely. It needed a voice. A body. A living vessel. Each time injustice stained the river, the spirit would awaken, and it would choose someone who could hear its whisper. Aria's hands trembled. "You mean, it's inside me?" Mateo shook his head slowly. "Not yet." 7. The first possession. The change came during a storm. Lightning flashed across the sky as rain poured over the town. Aria stood on the river bridge, unable to explain why she had walked there. The water below churned violently. Then the whisper returned, louder than ever before. "Let Maine." Her reflection stared back from the dark water, but something about it looked wrong. The reflection smiled first. Before she did, the rain suddenly stopped, and the river grew silent. Arya collapsed to her knees. When she stood again, her eyes looked deeper, like the river at midnight ate the next target. The spirit had chosen its new vessel, but the river's justice wasn't finished, because evil had not disappeared from the town. It had simply learned to hide better. A group of criminals had begun operating near the docks, smuggling drugs through fishing boats. Violence followed wherever they went. The river watched, and the spirit remembered. One night the leader of the group saw Arya standing near the docks. He approached her carelessly, but when she lifted her head, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not fear of a girl. Fear of something ancient looking through her eyes. The wind shifted. The smell of river water filled the air, and the man realized too late that the river had found him. 9. The Second Awakening. Over the next weeks, the criminal group began disappearing one by one. No bodies, no evidence, just wet footprints left behind on wooden docks. And sometimes, the faint sound of dripping water. Matteo understood immediately. The river had not stopped its work. It had simply found another soul to carry its voice. But the old fisherman feared something worse, because each time the spirit used a vessel, it stayed a little longer, and the line between the living and the river grew thinner. 10. The Final Warning. One evening, Matteo found Arya standing alone at the riverbank. The water was perfectly still. Too still. "You must leave this town," Matteo told her. Arya didn't look away from the river. "I can't," she whispered. "Why?" Her voice sounded distant, because the river says there are more coming. Matteo felt the cold truth settle in his chest. The spirit wasn't finished. It wasn't protecting the town. It was claiming it. The people of San Celestino still believe the river protects them, but protection can slowly turn into possession. Because every time the river chooses a new voice, the spirit grows stronger, and one day, there may be no one left in town who isn't listening. Welcome to DreadLoop. Every nightmare returns.